Welcome to another teaching from perfectingtheworld.com.
Good evening. Good to see you. We are continuing on the Ger at the Gate. We have been looking at the responsibilities of the non-Jew as they approach the boundaries of Israel and as they relate to the Torah of Israel. And I want to say something here that's really important to me personally. The reason why we are here is to strengthen Jewish life, to strengthen Jewish life in the mitzvot, to strengthen observance, to strengthen the boundaries of Israel. We're not here to compromise them, we're here to strengthen them. A big part of why we are involved in this effort is that we know that there are so many non-Jews out there that love the Torah of Israel and the people of Israel, and we are helping them learn how to affirm that love for Israel and that love for Israel's Torah by affirming the boundaries that God established at Sinai. We're not looking to blur any of those boundaries. As many of you know, we have a unique background. I have academic proclivities in Second Temple Jewish literature, including that written in Greek. I have proclivities in areas that involve the New Testament, and as a result, I use those to teach and to communicate Torah to help affirm the boundaries of Israel. And as a result, sometimes we are misunderstood to the point that we've been accused of being missionaries. We're not missionaries. We are probably the best anti-missionaries currently on the front lines. We are here to strengthen Jewish Torah life, to strengthen the boundaries of Israel, to affirm those boundaries, okay? And that's, again, why we are working so much with the non-Jewish world, who we know loves the Torah, loves the Jewish people. The people that we are working with specifically have these backgrounds, or they have spouses. We have a number of students whose spouses are Christians, and they want to help them in their learning in understanding the holiness of Israel and the boundaries of Israel. Beautiful things. Yes, we do sound different than any other Orthodox Jewish teachers that you are going to be hearing. And as a result of the way that we are approaching this, we are ahead of the curve. We are ahead of the curve. And we do not want anything to get in the way of the Geula, of the national redemption of Israel, which is also the redemption of all. It's of all the nations, of all the nations. It's coming under the Malchus Shemayim, the kingdom of heavens. That's our goal. That's our goal, okay? And it's an honor of Hashem. We saw yesterday the first 3 points of the heuristic that I'm using. A heuristic is a tool, an interpretive tool that can be used to help to express ideas. This heuristic that I'm using is the 6-pointed star. Okay, it's the Star of David. And we identified 3 points on the star. This is relative to the God-fearer, the non-Jew who loves the Torah of Israel, who wants to draw closer to God and to give up Avodah Zarah and come exclusively under the allegiance of the God of Israel. The first 3 points that we've emphasized are specifically for the individual that the Torah categorizes as the Ger Sha'ar. This is the Ger of the gate, often called Ger B'Sharecha, at the gate. This is the architecture of entrance within Torah. The Jewish people, as we've been mentioning, have been under siege for almost all of our existence. Since the advent of Christianity, the claims have been made, the theological claims have been made that our boundaries are nullified, that our boundaries are nothing. that they've been abolished. There's no more Israel. It's now the church, or the church is now the new spiritual Israel. That's the depiction we have on the right-hand side. This is the idea that the boundaries have been flattened. They've been abolished. We see many people who love the Torah in the non-Jewish world who walk into a relationship to the commandments and to the Torah, and they want to do the Torah. They want to be close to Hashem. And they begin with theological assumptions about doctrines like justification and imputation and regeneration and various Protestant ideas of what's often sometimes called salvation without works. And in their mind, because they've mapped their Christian identity, and they may not call it Christian, but because they've mapped it onto the entity called Israel, they claim that the boundaries are all gone and that they are Israel now. They are Israel now. If you were in the Mishnah class on Sunday, we talked about the Mishnah Tachuma, which spoke about how the nations at one point would have the Hebrew Bible in translation, and they would grow up saying, "We are Israel." And that's a beautiful thing and a dangerous thing. It's beautiful because that's been transformative of the world. Identifying with Israel's narrative has uplifted the entire world and has resulted in many people joining to Israel. But it's also been a source of replacement theology, suppression, supersessionism, and hostility against the Jewish people. This is what we have on the right-hand side. The gates don't exist. They've been abolished. And in reference to the Torah pursuant world, the irony is that they will defend the eternal endurance and validity of the Sabbath or of other Torah institutions. But when it comes to the boundaries of Israel, they're okay allowing them to slide. In most cases, I think that they're not aware that they're doing this. They've put their Christian theology back into the Hebrew Bible. The left-hand side is the current way it feels right now in the Jewish world. We are blockaded for many reasons. Like I mentioned, we've been under siege for a long time. The doors have been blockaded, and we have been in a stance of defense, a stance of protection against the world for a long time. And a lot of this is not a result of what our sages have given us. It's not a result of any of our codes. It's not a result necessarily of Mishnah or Gemara. I mean, we definitely have boundaries that have been imposed by the sages. But at the same time, a lot of this is a result specifically of feeling as though we're under siege. And that theological attack, the theological attack that claims that our boundaries have been laid waste and flat is a big part of that. As we've been saying, the way that the world currently is disposed, we have Israel directly under the dominion of Hashem, and the nations currently are under the dominion of the Sarim, of the princess, okay, ever since Babel. Israel is a light in the world. Israel's public social order is meant to be a contrast to the chaos under the Sarim. When a person from the nations gives up Avodah Zarah and comes to the gates of Israel, they publicly attest to their forsaking of Avodah Zarah. We're going to speak more about what that looks like today according to our traditions. And they leave the world of the chaos of the Sarim, and they enter the world of Israel's public social order. Again, we'll discuss that further. The Torah commands 36 times for Israel to love the ger. And the use of the ger is differentiated. We've already seen how the word ger is used differently throughout the Chumash. The end result of these commands to love the ger is an upward assimilation. Now, this might sound very uncomfortable to some of my listeners, but the fact is that the love for the ger directs the ger. We're talking about the ger Sha'ar and the ger Zedek. It directs them into an uplift an elevation into Kedusha. The reality is, even the Ger Zedek, the non-Jew who has done a Gior, they are still in a process of Gior their entire life. Their children are born Gerim. At some point, their children's children, at some point, they are born as Rachim. There is still an uplift happening within this process. And this begins the moment that the individual from the nations, that the Nochri, has given up the Avodah Zarah and asked to participate in the social order of Israel. This is the command that we saw yesterday. It reads here, when there sojourns with you a sojourner in your land, you are not to oppress him. The ger here is most likely the ger Zedek, but like I said, the spectrum, the way it's treated in the Torah, the spectrum is real. And it seems to be a proleptic. It's oriented toward further and deeper levels of incorporation. This is part of how we see that. It reads, Ka'ezrach michem yehye lechem hager hagar itchem. Like the native born among you shall he be to you, the sojourner that sojourns with you. Wa'ahavta lo kamocha, you shall love him like yourself. And here's why. Ki gerim Hayatham ba'aretz Misraim. Ani Adonai Elohim, because you were sojourners in the land of Egypt. I am Hashem, your God. Now, many translations will, for the sake of ease of understanding, they will translate this word ger as a convert. That goes way back to the Septuagint, which translated the ger into the Greek as proselyte, proselytos. Why is that? Because the ger would typically result generationally into an incorporation into Israel. They would become Israel. What's fascinating here is that obviously if we use the word ger for you were as convert, for you were converts in the land of Egypt, we were not converts in Egypt, we were sojourners. But what's interesting is that in contrast to the time in Egypt, Israel is told to love the ger. Because of the hostility that the Egyptians inflicted upon us, we did not assimilate into the people of Israel. But because of the love of the ger is given an upward assimilation into Israel. There are even provisions in the Torah for the ger that are unique to the ger as part of that upward assimilation and inclusion into Israel. One of these, which I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this today, but is the provision of the nevela. You may give it to the ger in your gate. This is the unslaughtered meat. It may be given as a gift without charging to the ger b'shareka. This is the ger, by the way, to be clear, this is the ger, not the ger zedek, but the ger sha'ar, or the ger nevela. In contrast, it may be sold to Nochri. At some point, we'll explain why. And as we've seen before, the process of this gior is the construct of naturalization. Again, it's often translated as convert, but it has a very ethnic component. This is the miracle of what it means for a person to become a Jew, an Israelite. When a person from the nations becomes an Israelite, when they become a Jew, they're becoming an ethnic Jew, an ethnic Israelite. There is no spiritual Israelite. To be a spiritual Israelite, to be a spiritual Jew, is to be an ethnic Jew, an ethnic Israelite. This is the miracle, is that anybody can become an ethnic Israelite. Any color, any background. There are no limitations at this time on who can become part of Israel. Okay, there are no limitations on even the marrying and so on once the person's become an Israelite. We read here in Exodus 12:48, if a sojourner sojourns with you and wants to make the Pesach offering, he shall circumcise all his males, and then he shall draw near to make the Pesach. At that point, it says, Ezrak, then he shall be like the native born. You'll not be a native born, you'll be like a native born. The native born is the natural sprout. Zerak has the meaning of sprouting, of growth. The ger is taking root into the tree of Israel. It's growing into the tree of Israel, taking root. You'll see here in this very verse, and I haven't really given much emphasis on this. There's more than one kind of ger in this verse. See this here. It says, "V'ki yagor itcha ger," if there shall sojourn with you a sojourner. That there at that point, that's the sojourner who still eats nevela. That's the ger sha'ar, the ger at the gate. However, at some point, he makes a transition that allows him to eat the Pesach, that puts him under the obligation to make and to eat the Pesach. That's the Zavach Pesach, the lamb. But before he does that, he is a sojourner who can eat nevela. How does the sojourner who can eat nevela begin this process of affiliation with Israel? Okay, a process that does not need to end with eating the Pesach, but that they can complete this. They can become a ger sha'ar, also called a ger toshav. We have the abjuration. That's the forsaking of divided allegiance, forsaking of avodah zarah. Number 2, giving full allegiance to Hashem alone, with no other gods. And then assignment. That's identifying that the Torah has an address, and that address is the people of Israel, the Jewish people. Let's look at this. Avodah zarah, as we've been describing, is foreign liturgy. It's alien liturgy. It's foreign worship, often mistranslated as idolatry. Idolatry is one form of avodah zarah. It's not all of it. We begin here with the abjuring of avodah zarah, renouncing the rival allegiance, the abandoning of foreign worship and unauthorized liturgy. That's the revocation, the abjuring of avodah zarah. From here, we give the allegiance, the exclusive allegiance to Hashem. As we've mentioned, the non-Jew that does this is doing so ahead of the rest of the nations. The prophets speak of a time when Hashem will be one, and his name will be one, and he'll be a king over all the earth. At that time, all the nations will accept the Shema. They will accept the Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, Hashem our God, Hashem alone. They will accept that. They will all accept that. Right now, the nations are under divided allegiance. Now, the individual from the nations who gives up the avodah zarah is forsaking the divided allegiance. Okay, they're abjuring it, they're revoking it, they're giving their allegiance to Hashem, and then the assignment. This is the acknowledgement that Torah has an address. God did not give the Torah to be possessed by the nations. He gave the Torah into the custodial care of the Jewish people of Israel. This is the Torah Ziva Lanu, Moshe Morosa Kehilath Yaakov. The Torah that Moses commanded us is the inheritance of the congregation of Jacob. This is recognition that Torah was entrusted to Israel and not given independently to be possessed by the nations. This is hugely significant. As I mentioned yesterday, I know so many people that want to give up the avodah zarah. They want to give up the avodah zarah. They want to give up, they often call it paganism. They want to give up the pagan holidays, the pagan practices, the pagan names, whatever it is. They want to give up all that dirtiness. But when it comes to this point, oh, no. They want to bypass the Jewish people. They want to bypass Israel. They want the Torah without the people to whom it was entrusted. They want to forego the assignment. This is the idea here that the individualism, that the person can have God, their own personal autonomy, and the Torah, just like that. The Torah only comes packaged with body odor. It comes packaged with the Jewish people. This is God, Israel, and Torah. This is a package. It's a package. This is the way God designed it. This is actually one of the best ways to preserve Torah in the world, is to attach it to a people in whom it is an inheritable property. It's a beautiful thing. Let's continue on the next three A's. We have the abjuration, the allegiance, the assignment, and then we have attestation, accountability, and admission. Let's explain what these mean. We're going to only begin, but I'll give you the bird's eye view. The attestation is that the individual is recognized as having crossed the threshold. Okay, this is what we call the Ger Toshav. This is the official institution of the Ger Toshav. We're going to speak more about that as time goes on, but just to give the elementary principles. From there, we have accountability. The Ger Toshav at this point is accountable to Israel, to Israel's gates, accountable within the Torah framework in which they can be adjudicated and judged. And then admission. This is the outlining of the rights that the Ger Toshav has within the people of Israel. As mentioned before, the first three are the responsibility of the non-Jew. The next three are the responsibility of Israel. And the reality is the responsibilities in Israel are pretty steep. They're pretty uncomfortable, as a matter of fact. But I need to emphasize this. The individual from the nations who fears God and loves the God of Israel is not responsible for what happens on the 4, 5, and 6. They are responsible for giving up the Avodah Zarah and recognizing where the Torah sits. As we've spoken here for some time now, the idea of the gate is the idea of the place of judgment within Israel. This is highly significant. The place of judgment is the gate. Even without going into the next pieces of literature, we could already arrive at this conclusion. The Ger B'Sharecha, the Sha'ar, is the place of judgment. That's where the judges, the Zachanim, the elders, the Shoftim and the Shotrim, the judges and the officers, that's where they make decisions before they appeal to the Beit Din Gadol, to the Sanhedrin. Okay, this is the place of judgment. From right here, we have enough of a Torah grammar to understand that the official entry of the non-Jew into Israel's social order would require having 3 witnesses, 3 judges, to accept their testimony. And that testimony is the foregoing of Avodah Zarah. I'm going to show you 3 sections from Talmud Bavli, Avodah Zarah 64b, that are going to circumscribe, they're going to draw the contours of what we're seeing natively as the grammar of the Chumash regarding this non-Jew at the gates. And it's really interesting, and you'll see here as we go why this is so fascinating. If you've been in any learning environment with me for some time, we've already looked at these. The first one here, this is Talmud Bavli of Avodah Zarah 64b, is Zehu Ger Toshav, who is the Ger Toshav? To clarify, in case you've not heard me already, the Ger Toshav is also the Ger Sha'ar, the Ger at the gate. Kol shekabel alav bifnei shalosh hachaverim shalosh shalola avodah zarah. This is anybody who has accepted upon himself before 3 chaverim, 3 associates. These are 3 at the time in the Second Temple era. These were Jews that were punctilious and strict about the offering of tithes and the teruma. Okay, these were observant Jews. The Ger Toshav is the person that comes before the 3 haverim, 3 witnesses. These are 3 qualified court witnesses. Notice that they aren't rabbis. They could be rabbis, but in this case, they are 3 observant Jews, and they forswear the performance of the liturgy of Avodah Zarah. This is la'avod, to do the liturgy of Avodah Zarah. This is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Really significant. Notice here it's the forswearing of Avodah Zarah is the litmus point. Okay, it's the entry point. Hachamim omrim, but the sages say, Kol she'echabal alav sheva mitzvoth she'kabalu aleihem b'nei Noach. The sages say, anyone who has accepted upon himself the observance of the 7 mitzvoth, the 7 charges, the 7 commissions, that the descendants of Noah accepted upon themselves. That's a Ger Toshav. You can see there's a difference here of opinion. And I should point out, at some point we will study this, there are differences of opinion about the Sheva mitzvahs in the Talmuds. There are numerations that have 30 mitzvahs. There are numerations that have 6. And there are disagreements in the lists. I need to point out that the concept of the covenant of Noah is very much a biblical Torah concept. You can read about it in Genesis 9. What basically is being said here is that in order to enter into Israel's social order, they have to affirm the base level covenant that was given to all humanity, all mankind, with the covenant of Noah, Genesis 9, verses 1 through 14. Now, this one is the one that I find turns my head the most. Acherim omrim, others say, Elu lo ba'u l'cholal ger toshav. Others say these don't enter the category of the Ger Toshav. Eliezehu Ger Toshav. This is the Ger Toshav. Who is he? Ze Ger Ochel Noveloth. This is the Ger who eats the unslaughtered meat. This is the Ger who eats meat that's not been given a kosher slaughter. We've been saying that. From Deuteronomy 14:21. Shekabel alav l'chaim kol mitzvoth ha'umoroth b'Torah chutz me'isor neveloth. He has accepted upon himself, it implies witnesses and implies a court, to uphold all the commandments of the Torah except for the command against eating nevela. There's a lot of nuance in this verse. As we know, the prohibition against eating nevela is specifically a prohibition that applies most fully to an Israelite, to a Jew. Some have argued that this is referring to, as a synecdoche, a reference to all the types of commandments that relate specifically to the Jew. It may not be that way. But it's worth noting this is very close to the grammar of Deuteronomy 14:21. The idea is this person's affirming all the Torah commandments with the exception of the commandment against eating nevela. What I do see happening here, I do see within this Talmud that the Ger Toshav referenced here may not be the same as the Ger Sha'ar, the Ger at the gates in Deuteronomy. But I do think that our sages here are preserving the memory of a publicly recognized status. And it's very clear to me that's very similar to what we've been developing from Deuteronomy. We'll give some practical legs to this as we continue in the study, but I want to point out a few points here that I want to linger on. First is B'fanei shalosh chaverim. He takes a vow to disavow, to abjure avodah zarah before three associates. Notice the need for the legal structure and for accountability. The second opinion says shelo la'avod avodath kokavim. He forgoes the liturgy of the service of stars. He's forgoing avodah zarah. All three different opinions here agree on this. And finally, ger ochel nevelos. This is the sojourner who eats nevela. Again, we've been speaking about the sojourner that eats nevela for some time. I hate to leave you hanging. We are at the end of our evening. I want to invite you to join us at Perfecting the World, where we have a community with daily discussions on the chat forums, with learning. We have every Sunday, we have our Mishnah class at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We have been learning very deeply about the structure of halakha. We're going back into Mishnah Barachot here shortly. Tuesdays, we've been learning about the image of God in Genesis 1, 2, and 3, about the calling of humanity and what that looks like disciplined within the Torah. And then our most controversial class is the NT Project, where we are reading the NT, like Second Temple Jewish literature, and learning to understand it with Torah disciplined eyes, not to mission eyes, but to do the exact opposite. Okay. Any questions, please reach out. If you have any comments, please also share this, like, and subscribe. I am honored to have you here. Tomorrow evening, 8 p.m., Torah Tuesdays. And then we're back for Field Notes on Wednesday. I've been asked to bring back the Sasquatch, so we'll see how far we can go with that. But Wednesday evening for Field Notes, and tomorrow evening, 8 o'clock, for the continuation of Torah Tuesdays. We'll talk to you all very soon. Have a fantastic night.
Join the PerfectingTheWorld.com community today.